this is a little off the cuff. Instead of having an initial release and then later an enhanced re-release, Game Freak decided to split Generation 5 into 2 parts. I mean, in essence, it's the same thing anyway, which I'll get into the Part 2 review. But if this was always the intention, to release the games this way, I couldn't tell you. Today we're going to be tackling the first part of the last major Pokemon title released for the DS, Pokemon Black and White, released in March of 2011. Okay, so around this time, I was back in a Pokemon high, you could say. Pokemon Platinum hooked me back in, and Heart Gold and Soul Silver ensured that I wasn't going anywhere anytime soon. When word started spreading that the next major generation was making its rounds, I picked it up day one, I played it for about 3 hours, and then put it back down. I wouldn't revisit Generation 5 until Part 2 came out later the next year. March of 2011 was a very busy time for me. I was on the verge of graduating from the Art Institute of Philadelphia. All of my attention was focused on getting my portfolio ready for my final presentation. After that, I still had my regular 9-to-5 job at Wawa, my spiritual anchor to the city, and I was getting ready to launch the Johnny Versus series on this channel. Yeah, that started in April of 2011. So it wasn't because Black and White bored me, it's just I was very busy elsewhere, and then after all it was done, I just forgot about it. But now I'm ready to see the rest of the game, and with Generation 5, Game Freak was set on getting new players into the games. You can argue that Generation 4 was about satiating the older crowd, the folks who grew up with Pokemon since the late 90s, early 2000s. The Gen 2 remakes alone was all about cashing in on that nostalgia, and I didn't mind considering those games turned out so well. A win-win for both the company and consumer. With this new generation, I'm getting the feeling Game Freak wanted to try and recapture that magic of Generation 1. And I don't mean just bringing back Kanto and having you capture Rattatas in the grass for the 5th time or plastering Pikachu's face everywhere, but to try and have a region that's doing its own thing, far removed from Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, or Sinnoh, whose routes and cave systems are their own, where the only Pokemon available are what's exclusive for that region. This was the Unova region, based heavily around the New York City metropolitan area. That's right, for Generation 5, we were... I say now throwing balls, catching some garbage. Yep, we're in the not America for Generation 5, and already I feel right at home. We got airports, sports stadiums with no one watching, so I'm guessing their team sucks, amusement parks, Broadway musicals. I'll gladly watch my little Munna dance with a top hat than participate in those contests again. Those are nowhere to be seen in this game. You got your apartments, big ass cities, nice suburban areas that you can't afford to live in, and lots of bridges. Call it my American bias, but I love the Unova region, especially growing up as a city boy. Though it has different slices of Americana splattered throughout. It's not that previous regions didn't have their own personalities, but Unova's resonates with me so hard because of the basis. Again, fully biased in that viewpoint, but I'm American, what do you want from me? There's still a handful of exotic locations for those looking for something more mystical. The Chargestone Cave is probably one of my favorite caverns in the series period, and though they're a little short, the Celestial and Dragon Spiral Towers are awesome for the cool camera angles and music alone. I have to give it to Black and White now, they nailed the 3D graphics for this one. Generation 4 helped set the basis, but by now they knew how to make it work. The dynamic camera angles really sell how grandiose the Unova region can be. Crossing over the bridge to some place like Castalia City is something straight out of an anime opening. I'm serious, pop in your favorite anime song and run through the bridge. I bet you it'll fit. Locales like Nimbasa's city are positively bustling with activity, making them feel very alive. It's a big old melting pot of city folks and trainers, some of which we've never seen before, including black people. Holy shit, I cannot believe it took them until Generation 5 to give us black trainers. What the hell was the holdup? On top of the day and night system coming back, there's also now different seasons. Depending on the time of year you play, it could be autumn, winter, spring, or summer, lasting about a month apiece in real time, which is a cool detail, but also a pain in the ass if there's a specific event you want to do that's only available in a certain season. It's like they're only now trying to capitalize on the Animal Crossing craze. I didn't feel like manipulating the system clock to jump ahead a few months to see what those kind of things were. My adventure started in autumn and I love the fall aesthetic, so why would I change that? The force, looks so beautiful. I know, I'm kind of jumping around here. It's just, as far as stories go, with Pokemon, you kind of know what you're getting into, but I can say Black and White probably has the best story so far, compared to previous gens I should mention. It's still a rather simple story with some of the usual trappings that come standard with Pokemon, but Black and White does something that no main generation game has done at this point in time, and that's making the Pokemon League adventure integral to the plot. Our heroes for this adventure can either be Hilbert or Hilda. I decided to go female this time since I haven't done that yet for this review channel, and for the record, this is pronounced Jeanne. I get people pronouncing this wrong all the time on Final Fantasy XIV. It's French, you uncultured swines. Anyway, in the quiet New Vima town, our protagonists along with their two best friends Bianca and Sharon are given their own Pokemon and Pokedexes to begin their brand new Pokemon adventure, all in the name of helping Professor Juniper continue her research on Pokemon. And if you think I'm expediting that, no, I'm really not. They waste little time getting you going on your journey. Obtaining your first Pokemon, your first trainer battle, getting Pokeballs for capture, learning how the PC works, this is all done within the first 15 to 20 minutes or so. It's very streamlined. I know it's not that big of a deal compared to like Gen 1 or Gen 2, but Gen 5 still manages to be just as quick and doing a better job in establishing other characters and personalities. Not too long ago, we're introduced to our main villains of this story, Team Plasma, led by this unusually spaced out fellow named N. These walking, talking dildos go on about how Pokemon should be separated from their human owners since we use them as tools for self-gain and battles, and immediately I thought, oh shit, the villain this time is PETA. I mean, Team Plasma still use Pokemon to further their goals, and some have no qualms abusing Pokemon to get what they want, and the true head of the organization is just using it as a front to achieve his goals, so there's definitely some hypocrisy there, but hey, PETA is also one for generating hypocritical controversy, so I say it's a lovely fuck you to them all the same. Still, a rather bold topic to discuss this go around. I mean, let's face it, we all know Pokemon is glorified G-rated cockfighting, right? I say G-rated and I'm talking about creatures who can spew poison and flamethrowers like it's nothing, but who's to say that it's right for us to place Pokemon in those situations? Are Pokemon truly okay with that, even when they hammer in that connections between humans and Pokemon have run deep since the beginning of time? It's an interesting idea, a little late to the punch if you ask me, but one that still isn't fully explored. Team Plasma is bent on taking Pokemon from their owners. In their eyes, they're liberating them, but they also spend some time trying to convince people to join their cause, but nothing ever comes out of that. All the townsfolk they talk to have already made up their minds and refuse to even think about it, so there's no real emotional strife or conflict amongst folks outside of Team Plasma. A lot of time is spent on exploring what Pokemon mean to people, outside of battling, as companions, as pets, or what have you, and that makes for some interesting character building, particularly with N here. Maybe fully exploring Team Plasma's point would be a little too political for this kind of game, but for an RPG, those kind of things are perfect for storytelling. But alright, N here comes from royalty, one deeply ingrained in Unova's history and sorely lacking in basketball skills. You visit his room later on and Jesus Christ, that's not even a basketball. Anywho, N is super affectionate for his Pokemon and wants to use the power of the legendary Zekrom and Reshiram, all depending on what version you're playing, to prove himself a hero and win the Pokemon League Championship to help spread his ideals and convince people to release their Pokemon. Firstly, I was not aware that winning the Pokemon League Championship can give someone that much power and authority over the people. It's not like Super Bowl champions can suddenly proclaim that owning pets are illegal, so I'm not sure how that was going to play out after he won the championship. He eventually reveals that he wants to create a world where only Pokemon can thrive and despises how humanity uses them as tools. What makes N compelling for me is that even with his viewpoints, he's not entirely antagonistic towards the hero. He doesn't outright hate humanity, he just wants Pokemon to have better lives. At some points, he even eternally struggles to justify his goals when he sees the growing relationship between the hero and their Pokemon. It goes against how he was raised, but he isn't narrow-minded or overly stubborn to not question if his path is the right path. He was raised with a warped viewpoint thanks to his father, caretaker, Ghetsis here, who visually fits the standard for obvious RPG villain way better than N ever will, but that's another thing I like about N visually. Just look at him, he fits the mold of the usual Pokemon protagonist, but instead of completing the Pokédex, something he absolutely loathes conceptually, he wants to release Pokemon, the antithesis of your character. But Ghetsis is revealed to be the real mastermind of Team Plasma, as he wanted to use N to befriend the legendary Unova Pokemon to help their cause and convince folks to liberate Pokemon not so much to save the Pocket Monsters, but so he can control them all for himself and use them to conquer the world. Now that's the vanilla antagonist I'm used to seeing in these kind of games. Unfortunately, they tipped their hands a little early with this reveal. It's very clear that Ghetsis has his own ideas and is merely using his team and N to pursue his own goals, so right away that tells you this isn't really about the message Team Plasma is trying to spread, but merely stopping Ghetsis, a more one-note plot point. Nevertheless, what makes most of this work is that it's directly tied to your quest to become a Pokemon League champion yourself. As always, you're encouraged by the Pokemon Professor to head on out, explore the region, get gym badges, and enter the Pokemon League to fill out that Pokédex. However, N establishes early on that he plans on battling the Elite Four and becoming champion, and implores that if you want to stop him, you need to get those gym badges and meet him at the end of the Pokemon League, giving you extra incentive for completing your goals besides the usual of just cuz. Now, I'm not sure if N went and got gym badges for himself, considering you can't even enter the final area without having all the badges. Check out the security measures, man. Pokemon champions are serious fucking business in Unova. Then again, N along with Team Plasma are one of the more discreet gangs. While they do show up from time to time to cause a ruckus, they like to handle their business under the radar most of the time to not attract too much attention. In the eyes of many, they're simply a nuisance, not too different from punks, completely unaware of their ulterior motives, especially with Ghetsis here. However, whenever they do show up, our hero not only gets assistance from their two best friends, but also the region's gym leaders. I just love how this game handled the gym leaders. I'll say now though, Unova doesn't give a flying shit about child safety laws because some of these gyms are just begging for lawsuits. One has you shooting yourself out of a cannon just to proceed, and you clearly smack into a wall with one of them. I mean, ow. There's one where you slide off icy cliffs and fly above bottomless chasms. Jesus Christ, I should get a badge just surviving these damn obstacles. But besides being opponents you need the challenge to get badges as status quo dictates, almost all of the gym leaders get involved in helping you keep Team Plasma in check. They have clear-cut personalities and characteristics that make them some of the most interesting gym leaders by far, and when push comes to shove, they're not afraid to get their hands dirty for the sake of thwarting Team Plasma. In a way, they're kind of like secondary authority figures with duties outside their respective gyms, and I love seeing that sort of thing. Outside of Team Plasma shenanigans, they also serve as anchors for character development concerning your friends Sharon and Bianca. These two act as your rivals, Sharon more than Bianca really. Bianca just wants to get out there and find purpose in her life, but is awfully insecure about her trainer abilities and isn't sure if she's cut out for this sort of thing. Not to mention, she has a father who is adamant on keeping her at home because he doesn't think a child should be out there all alone traveling the world, to which I say, yeah, he's right, about time someone said it. But this is the world of Pokemon, so eventually he's convinced that Bianca can learn to grow and fend for herself as long as she has her friends and her Pokemon by her side. Sharon is a little more classical if you ask me. He wants to become Pokemon champion himself and become stronger as an individual, but sometimes his overly intellectual assertions and logical demeanor can make him lose sight of the bigger picture. I like to think of him as the Spock of the group if you ever watched Star Trek, a good-natured kid with determination and is committed to his goals, but not very fun at parties. Though your character is the same old new protagonist, I feel the game does make up for it with Sharon and Bianca because the game constantly keeps us updated on these two. They pop in for conversations, they test your skills on occasion, and they're just as part of the adventure as you are without being dedicated party members. I still think it would have been cool if they were with us in every step of the way so that we can get their thoughts and opinions on everything. I relish those kinds of small interactions in RPGs. Truth be told, I didn't think this game needed Getsus. I know he's the main reason why N is the way he is, and that makes him a pretty repulsive individual, but remove him from the equation for 1 second. If N's plans for Pokemon and his ideals were his own, and he still had that sheltered demeanor because, he grew up in that castle, likely away from social activity and all that, he thinks what he's doing is truly right in his eyes. I think that'd be compelling enough to give us a reason to stop him. We see in the Unova region that Pokemon mean a lot to people of all ages for all different reasons, that they're more than just tools for everyday life. N doesn't quite see this, but getting him to think otherwise would have been an engaging enough story, but for the sake of having a traditional final boss, we have Getsus here who's responsible for raising N to be this way, and who wants to use Pokemon for his own evil ambitions, and I feel this didn't need to be a thing in this story. Gen 5 is called Black and White not as a callback to the color generations, but because of the story's themes, and Getsus here doesn't really fit in my opinion. Well, maybe he's the black to our white or vice versa, but at the end of the day, it ain't Getsus that keeps me going, it's N. But N is the way he is because of Getsus, so you can kind of see the bind I'm in here. Getsus being a thing also tips off Team Plasma's true agenda far too early in the story. You know how things are going to play out because of it. Though a silver lining to this is that it does make N more sympathetic. What I would want would require some major rewrites to the narrative, I'm aware. And that's a discussion for another day, I suppose. But either way, you face off against Getsus, take him out with your team, but he's able to escape police custody to parts unknown thanks to his ninja buddies, and hate when that happens. The fact that this is easily the longest plot summary in my generation review so far should let you know how ingrained the story is to the adventure this time, and for the better. It's a constant driving force, it makes you want to keep going to see where it all leads. It's a very linear Pokemon adventure, and yes, it's still a rather basic narrative, but interesting all the same. I enjoyed the story. I loved Bianca and Sharon as my rivals. I thought N to be one of the most interesting characters in the franchise so far, and I love how it all tied to the adventure. Black and White isn't quite as long as Platinum. You don't even visit a good third of the Unova region until post-game. Most of your journey involves you traveling on the west side of the region, and it's pretty much a straight shot with no real major detours. It's all in servicing the story, so much like Platinum, I don't mind the railroaded nature of it all, especially considering that I find this story thought-provoking. One thing they certainly learned not to repeat from Platinum, though, are the overabundance of HM usage. Their significance has been dramatically reduced. Most are now relegated to exploring post-game areas, and even those instances are rather bite-sized. But now, you don't need to climb waterfalls or push rocks just to finish the story. I think they're only needed maybe once or twice early in the campaign, and it's simply to cut a tree. Whew, that is a relief. Here's another thing they changed. You can now use TMs an unlimited amount of times, and that's great. I don't have to worry now about giving something like Dig to a fire or ground type I might later replace, and then I can't teach the new Pokemon the move because I already used the TM. I had to hope it was available in a TM shop or if the Pokemon learned the move naturally or through breeding, but now I can give my Afro Buffalo a wild charge and still have it for future use. They got rid of the Watch from Gen 4 and I'm quite sad to see it go. It was a pretty handy tool, though the dowsing machine is still here and it's even better than before if you can believe it. You just follow the arrows like so until you hit the jackpot. I love it. Rarely did I have this thing off. The bottom screen is mostly reserved for menus and your new C gear. They ask you if you want to turn this thing on every time you boot up the game, and it's a bit annoying, but not entirely intrusive. Back when the game was current, it was used to set up Wi-Fi battles and trades with greater ease. You didn't need to go to Pokemon centers anymore, you can just find matches by clicking these buttons. You can now also use the DS's infrared sensor to set up local battles and trades by just getting two DS's within close proximity to each other. And I remember getting a lot of mileage out of this feature in Black and White too. It was damn nifty and convenient. With the Wi-Fi service shut down, you're likely just using the infrared sensor for local stuff, and also because the service is down, I can't talk about the Dream World feature anymore. Back then, you would use it to send your Pokemon to this otherworldly realm and have them collect items for your adventure, Pokedex completion, decorating your secret base, grow berries. It was basically Black and White's underground. I don't remember much of it myself. I was fine just using the standard Wi-Fi connection to get Pokedex entries back when I was marathoning Black and White too. It's sad that it's not available anymore, but that's just how these things work nowadays, isn't it? Well, I wouldn't call the Dream World stuff integral to the Generation 5 experience anyway. As always, there's plenty to do in the main game, and oh my god, I almost forgot how much I love Gen 5's battle system. This is peak 2D Pokemon right here. Sprites from front to back are now fully animated, and though for some it does look a little weird and not too far from glorified puppet animations, it adds a ton of energy to battles, and it's so much faster than previously. The camera angles are more dynamic with dramatic zoom-ins and snaps to emphasize attacks of all varieties, weather effects are sped up, attack damage is sped up, HP restoration is sped up, the whole damn thing is just quicker, and I can't say enough how much I love this. When your Pokemon's HP reaches critical levels, you get this sinister remix of the critical health noise. Yeah, it's a little annoying on how it overrides the current battle theme, and I love the battle themes in this game, but I'd take a clever remix over an obnoxious alarm any day of the week. On the other end, when you're battling a gym leader and you're at their last Pokemon, you get this super triumphant music that lets you know that you're almost there, you just gotta give it that little extra push. I love a dynamic soundtrack done right, and Black and White sure as shit does it right. That said, there wasn't much change from Gen 4 to Gen 5 mechanically speaking. Nothing as major as the physical special split anyway. With some trainers you can participate in rotation battles and triple battles. You don't get much of these throughout the game, and the version you're playing determines which one you'll see more of. Triple battles don't really need a long explanation. It's a 3-on-3 encounter that requires you to consider a Pokemon's current position if you want to hit them with specific moves or hit them at all. Otherwise you have to shift them around if they're not within range. Double battles that require a little more thought and nothing more. Rotation battles I never liked. 3 of your Pokemon are placed on this rotating platform, but only the one on the front lines can attack. You can rotate to another Pokemon and choose a move, but opponents can also rotate just as you're about to attack. It's Pokemon battles with even more RNG, because you never know when your opponent is going to rotate to another Pokemon, and suddenly that attack you chose that was super effective against this Pokemon is now squandered by the new Pokemon taking the attack with little to no effect. I'm just glad you don't run into these a lot, and some trainers will even warn you beforehand that they want to do a rotation battle, which you can thankfully decline. The only other thing I can think of is the change to experience gains. Higher leveled Pokemon earn less experience now when they knock out a lower level Pokemon, but the opposite is also true. Weaker Pokemon earn a shit ton of experience now when they defeat a stronger Pokemon. It helps tremendously with catch-up when you're training for your endgame team, but the inclusion of one particular Pokemon makes grinding almost trivial. This is Audino. Audino loves you, and you will love Audino. You can only find them in those rustling patches of grass, which doesn't take very long to spot, but they're available in just about every route in the game. Their move pool is almost laughably skewed in your favor, making them easy to defeat, and the amount of experience that you gain from knocking them out makes it so that you're leveling practically after every other fight. It's crazy. It's only annoying when you gotta deal with an Audino that knows Attract, where you can inflict Pokemon of the opposite gender with the infatuation status, and makes it so that attacks are only successful 50% of the time. And with that said, fuck the infatuation status. I know it's been a thing since Gen 2, but I don't know, man, I ran into that shit constantly here, and the only item that can cure it is insanely rare and cumbersome to get, so you either gotta switch them out or get lucky and hope you have a Pokemon with an ability that makes them oblivious to the other Pokemon's charms. Okay, and ranting aside, with Audino grinding, you can ensure that your Pokemon, no matter the type, can get to comfortable levels in no time, making the leveling curve in Black and White relatively easy to deal with. It's still not as brain dead as Gen 2, but not as what the fuck as Gen 1 or as surprising as Gen 4. Until the post-game, that is. The Elite Four and the Champion all peak at around the early to mid 50s, but once you start visiting those routes that are immediately available once you finish the game, bam, mid to upper 60s. What the hell happened here? Shit, keep going a little further and you can face off against a returning Cynthia from Gen 4 whose Pokemon are in the lower to mid 70s. I thought my Audino grinding was overkill, but apparently I didn't knock out enough. So thanks to your votes in the Gen 4 video, I got Oshawott as my starter, which was a win for me, seeing as that they were my favorite of the three anyway. One thing I completely forgot about Gen 5 Part 1 was that the Unova Pokedex was quite limited. Over 150 new Pokemon were made for Black and White, but until you finish the story, you won't be seeing anything but these new Pokemon exclusively, and early on it's pretty dull. I couldn't keep counting the number of trainers that use Patrats, Pidubs, woo, Bats, Lillipups, and Purloins. Now, I'm sure these Pokemon have their fans, but at this point in time with over 400 of these creatures available, to suddenly limit the availability of them was jarring to say the least. And you know what? I'm just going to leave that there for now because call it a hunch, I might be bringing up this point again for a future review, God knows how long from now. If you want your Pikachus or your Flyguns or your Eevees, that ain't happening unless you migrate from Gen 4 or trade with a friend that has them. Otherwise, it's time to make some new Pokebuddies, and I struggled a bit thinking of what I wanted my team to be. With a couple of exceptions, I didn't remember any of the Gen 5 lineup. Look, there's over 800 of the fucking things nowadays, can you blame me? I remembered the ice cream cone, the set of gears, and the garbage bag. Not judging, just saying what came to mind. Well, with my water type already covered, I got the Fire Monkey Pansear and eventually evolved them into Simisear. I had a hard time choosing between Mana and Gothita for my Psychic type. I ended up with Mana because of the higher special attack and HP, but god damn, she was so slow. Alakazam and Espeon, she ain't. I got a Bofalant for a normal type power and coverage, my Ursaring of this gen really, and because I love the afro, I'm easily pleased. At first I was going to stick with Blitzel for my electric type because I like their speed, but I ended up not following through with this because I found my Gen 5 soulmate in the form of Stunfisk. That face, man, speaks volumes. Some days you just feel like a Stunfisk. Welcome aboard, Spirit Pal. I was gonna level up a Dino into a Hydreigon because I remember having one in my team in Black and White too, but ugh. Dino doesn't evolve into a Zweilous until level 50, and then it takes them until 64 to finally turn into a Hydreigon. Even with all Dino grinding, that's just a chore. So I decided to cheat this time. Normally I'm against adding legendaries to my team, it's just a personal preference, but no shit, I love Reshiram's design, it's one of my favorite legendaries in the entire franchise. And it gave me an excuse to add a Bob to my team. There's always room for a Bob. I don't remember if Black and White 2 shared the same legendaries, but they were toned down compared to Gen 4 anyway. We still got some roamers, and I already complained about them enough last time, so I won't waste more of your time here. I tried to catch one with a quick ball on turn 1, but that didn't work out sadly. That did work with Reshiram, and that got a laugh out of me, and it also meant that I can save my Master Ball for another legendary, and I decided to make that this one, Kyurem, located in the Giant Chasm. I recall this one having more significance in the sequel, but in this game he's just here, scaring the nearby residents shitless, and giving me a scare with his sudden screaming. There's also these three, collectively known as the Swords of Justice. Now that's a badass name for a group. Cobalion, Terrakion, and Verizon. I'm sorry, wait. That's Verizon? Virizion. Nah, I don't really know. Doesn't take much effort to find them. They're just waiting for you in their small locales, and they're pretty low level comparatively speaking. I was a little over leveled at this point and ended up knocking them all out. Oh well, there's always a sequel, I guess. There's no battle frontier this time, though there is this battle subway in Nimbasa City. You ever thought about participating in dogfighting during your morning commute? Not me, but that's what the battle subway is. It's not as gimmicky as the Frontier, it's strictly your Pokemon against others in single battles, double battles, or even multiplayer battles with your friends. You face off against a select number of trainers in a row and earn battle points to spend on exclusive TMs and items that can help get your competitive team up to snuff, or at least help make your team capable of defeating the Elite Four in those much harder rematches. It's all still as much as a time sink as Battle Frontier was anyway. Though I have more playtime in Black and White 2 for reasons I'll get into when I get there, it was good to finally play the first part of Generation 5. It easily has the best story we've seen up to this point with how engaging the villains are as characters and concepts, taking established things such as gym leaders and giving them more significance in the main plot, and by having two of the most interesting rivals as your best friends that learn and grow throughout the adventure. Gameplay mechanics were streamlined and made much faster, the region is not a chore in the slightest, HMs take a humongous backseat until post-game, and while you're only limited to using Unova Pokemon until later, there's still plenty to choose from and it can make for a good opportunity to make some new best friends. I don't know if I can say that Generation 5 Part 1 is the quintessential 2D Pokemon experience, but it is a damn good Pokemon game regardless, and if you haven't given it a shot, you should. It's a great time. Oh my god, we're almost done here. You know, I keep thinking the more I talk about the mainline generation games that every subsequent video would get shorter because there'd be less to talk about. But as this Pokemon Marathon has demonstrated, that is clearly not always the case. I do want to take some time to, look at Pokemon Puzzle League and the Mystery Dungeon title, but rest assured the next mainline review, the Black and White 2 video, will be the official end of the Pokemon Marathon. But before I sign off, I do have some updates concerning my Pixel Empire store. If you've never been, Pixel Empire is an awesome online store celebrating all things gaming, sci-fi, and anime. It's got things like clothing, apparel, posters, and phone cases that'll show your friends and family how much you love being a total geek. It's also got a select number of collections inspired by other YouTubers such as Cat Icarus, Ant Dude, and Nintendrew, just to name a few. My store got a couple of brand new items added. There's my new revamped logo shirt, now updated to fit the current intro. I love it. If you always wanted something like the Mega Man inspired art on a picture frame, those are now available to purchase and hang on your wall. And ladies and gentlemen, we got coffee mugs. There's 3 varieties too. The Mega Man one, my Luigi inspired one, drinking his own cup of coffee, so that's some Inception level stuff going on there. And we got my personal favorite, the logo mug. It's just one of those things that works as a coffee mug design, and much love to the folks at Pixel Empire for making it possible. I always leave a link to the store page in the description of every video I publish here, but in case you forgot, it's pixelempire.com/Johnny. Orders over $50 are eligible for free shipping, and at checkout, you can use the code Johnny15 to save yourself 15% off your total order. Get to shopping while the shopping is good, and thank you so much for your continued support. Thank you all for watching. Have yourselves a fantastic night, and take care. As John heads into his final stop for this marathon, he still can't shake the feeling that he's forgetting about something. But will his memory be jogged in time for the finale, and will he actually care? The adventure reaches its conclusion next time with Pokémon Black and White 2.